welcome back to another episode of Factory Fresh. I'm Lee Bailey.
I'm Harjaan.
And today, Harjaan,
what do you have for me?
We're going to be talking about, again, this is speculative because that's kind of what we do here at Factory Fresh. Because, you know, we talk about a lot of news and things that haven't quite been confirmed, but this is exciting. We've talked in recent weeks about cars that are being discontinued, that are going away, that are
killing off a bunch of cars.
They're sunsetting them, or they're sending them off into the great beyond. But today, there's an interesting story that comes to us courtesy of The Drive, which is a automotive website.
Yeah.
And their story, they've done a couple of stories on this actually, but it's about the potential of Honda and Nissan not merging. That's not happening. That's done.
That's gone.
But they might collaborate on next-gen supercars, the Acura/Honda NSX and
Honda
the
Type
Nissan GTR, which our production team has mocked up. They might be sharing technology and building a car each, like the NSX for Honda, Acura, and the GTR obviously for Nissan, but they could be off a shared architecture platform, shared technology. We're not sure.
Z4, Supra.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my story, live on PassMag.com right now. You can go and read it. But basically, the TLDR on this is one of the Drive's journalists spoke to an executive that works at Nissan North America in Nashville, which is the headquarters for Nissan in North America. This guy, whose name I will try and pronounce, please, if I butcher your name, sir, I didn't mean to. His name is Pons Pandikathira. He is a senior vice president and chief planning officer for Nissan North America. Now, I'll just call you like Pons going forward, because that name is tricky.
Ponzi.
But he's a high-ranking executive, and he would know about what's going on behind the curtain at Nissan. And apparently the companies have been talking since before the merger. The merger talks were back in the winter, and then February they kind of fell apart.
For them teaming up?
For them joining forces as companies. But the talk of partnering on specific projects, like supercars, for example, that's been ongoing and still is ongoing. Now, there's no announcement, okay? Let us be clear. There's no announcement that they're officially going to co-develop these cars. But they could. And so I'll just read a quote here from, again, it's on PassMag.com. Check it out yourself at your leisure. But let me just find it here. He basically said, told The Drive that joining forces on specific projects is still very much alive. That's what he told The Drive. And I quoted it in my story that I wrote, that I posted today. Now, our audience is probably wondering, what kind of propulsion would these cars have, right?
Yeah, what's the drivetrain?
A few weeks ago, we ran a story about the Nissan Hyperforce, which was shown at the Tokyo Motor Show in 2023. No propulsion details there, but if you want to get a sense of what the next-gen GTR might look like, I mean, it even had the round taillights, and it had kind of a very concept-y space-age interior. It had like an F1 type steering wheel, but no details about the propulsion. Well, in this story, Nissan has basically said, Pons told The Drive here that it is going to be a plug-in hybrid or a gas hybrid with a turbo engine. So there was talk that they might go full EV with the next GTR. Doesn't sound like it. Now, this isn't official, but he's basically saying, in 3 to 5 years,
we're going to get a 4-cylinder GTR.
But with a gas, I don't know. We don't know. Yeah. But it's a turbo engine with either a plug or a gas hybrid. Honda wasn't quoted in the story. I looked for quotes from a Honda executives. There weren't. I guess he only talked to this. He only talked to Pons. But Honda, for its part, has said. Let me just find it here. That they are not going to. They could go. A supercar, an NSX type supercar is coming. But he also mentioned, this executive that the journalist spoke to last year,
or
previously, said that there will be a Honda Sports EV, but there's also an NSX successor coming as well. And in the story, it's not clear whether or not we're talking about one car from Honda or two. So we don't know.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But one thing he did say, and it's in the story. I mentioned it in in my story. It's also in the drive story. Is that if it's an EV, it will not use solid state battery tech because that tech will not be ready in time. So if you're thinking of an EV for the NSX, potentially, we're thinking of existing battery tech, lithium ion.
What we have right
now, like a lot of the manufacturers.
So nothing new.
So no solid state, because solid state is still, they're working on it.
Under development.
So is Nissan. Nissan's working on solid state as well.
Now, do you think maybe in the next few years it might be an option?
I think after the end. I think once we get into the next decade.
Okay, so pretty much
not this decade.
Not this generation, NSX. Probably maybe the next one.
Right. And so in my story, I kind of talk about some of these topics that came up as part of the story. But apparently they also had a deal that they signed last summer. It's in the story. I mentioned my story as well.
Yeah.
Where they already have a strategic partnership, which was signed last summer, Honda and Nissan, to work on specific projects. Now, they didn't say what those projects were, but it's not too hard to imagine that they could be, one of those projects could be Supercar.
But now, coming from Nissan's like pretty horrific, pass for the past
last
2 to 3 years,
yeah,
laid
off a lot of people.
Why would they, take all this R&D to produce a supercar when they know their company's already losing? Why wouldn't they just produce like an economic SUV hybrid? Because those are what the consumers buy, right?
Well, I think they're going to do that too. I think they're going to do both.
Yeah.
I mean, they recently unveiled the next generation Leaf, which is going to be turned into an SUV, by the way.
What?
So the hatchback is hatchback. If you want a Leaf hatchback,
is it like a midsize?
You should buy the current one. Yeah, it's going to be fully unveiled in I think in June. So we're at the end of April. Very soon. But it's going to go SUV, and they put some other cars kind of in shadow. Like there's a new Sentra coming, which is a small sedan.
Okay.
There's some other. I don't have the shot here, but there's a group shot on the. You can find it on.
Oh, like their family.
They showed the Leaf in full. Fully lit, but the other cars are kind of in shadow with the DRLs on, kind of the and they're all. If you look at the body styles, the only car I saw was like a new Sentra. The rest are all SUVs. So I guess to answer your question, that's going to continue. These cars sell in such low volume. I in my story just before we came on air, I was just adding a little more detail. The reason they might want to join, and I mentioned the 86 and the BRZ, is because those cars don't sell in great numbers either. They're also niche cars. Every sports car, ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, our audience knows, are niche cars. Yeah. They don't sell in great volume.
They do better on the used market for sure.
They do. I mean, the R35, the picture of the R35 right there, it was on sale. It was almost unchanged, more or less, for about 17 years.
Yeah.
It was on sale.
And I know
there's lots of them out there.
Over 15 people I know that own GTRs. Yeah. None of them bought them brand new.
So, but the final year of sales did kind of spike to last year. It was 267 units sold in the U.S.
Yeah,
but that's because it was going away.
They add the limited edition tag to it, and everyone goes crazy.
T-Spec Takumi edition and a Skyline edition.
Yep.
Special colors.
The Bayside Blue, they brought that back.
Yep.
The Millennium Jade.
So the NSX, I had to look this up because I wasn't sure how long it's been out of production. So the second gen NSX, which was built at the Performance Manufacturing Center in Ohio, so it was built in the U.S., not in Japan.
Full U.S.
The GTR is always
GTR is
Japan.
Fully Japan.
Yeah. 298 units in 2022. Its last full year of production. That's when they had the. Our production team is showing shots of the Type S.
So that
was the last model.
NSX last year.
But here's the thing. That was more than double what it sold the year prior. So as soon as people knew it was going away, sales spiked right up.
You never know what you have till it's gone.
But absolutely, 100%. So they didn't want to miss out. I just checked the sales before we came on air for these are U.S. sales, by the way. So you want to know why they might want to partner? They might want to partner because the cars don't sell in great volume. development costs are high. They want to share the development cost across both companies. They want to share technology, especially with the hybrid electrification, potential EV technology. It sounds like Honda wants to go that way with the NSX. But the story kind of suggests that perhaps there could be more than one car, because they talk about this EV having a different name. So would the NSX be more like a hybrid? Like we should also mention the second gen NSX was a gas hybrid.
Yeah,
had electric motors and a battery pack, but not.
A lot of people were upset about that.
They were, because as we talked about before we came on air, that car was in development for a long time, partly because they changed from a gas-only powertrain to a hybrid.
Yeah.
Its production was delayed. Its development cycle was delayed significantly because of that. It didn't come out until 2016.
There were a lot of problems.
Right.
You know, the NSX was supposed to be this mid-engine supercar killer that was affordable, but it ended up being.
It wasn't. That was the problem.
Price heavier than like a Ferrari or Porsche.
Heard anecdotally that some dealers, because all the dealers, I can't speak for the U.S., but here in Canada, I heard through the grapevine that some Canadian Acura dealers did not want one because they weren't sure if they could sell it because it was so expensive.
The markups were insane.
The base MSRP, guys, in Canada was $190,000. Yeah.
Wow.
So you're talking Audi R8 money or more?
And you're spending that. Like, this is like, these are the people back in the 90s that were like, oh, you're spending that money on an NSX?
Yeah.
On a Honda? You're buying a Honda for $80,000 back in the day.
Our viewers may also know this if anybody's watching from outside North America. It was a Honda everywhere outside North America. Only an Acura in the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
It was a Honda NSX in Europe, Asia, Australia, everywhere else. So people should keep that in mind. But it was priced, and that's part of the reason Acura exists in the first place, is because you can't
price something higher.
Americans don't want to spend a certain amount of money on a Honda badge. So, but even still, $189K base MSRP was kind of pushing it, even for an Acura badge, like a supercar.
What was the base for the GTR? I think the
GTR was lower at the time. Now, the GTR, when it went out of production last year, was our past editor, Adam Gordon, the three of us are talking about that today on the fair, that it was approaching $200K by the time it went out of production. Like, that's, the GTR used to be a performance car. You get one for around $120K in the old days.
Yeah, used for like 60, 70.
And we were saying that that's what's going to happen, is the used market will for the GTR. There's more GTRs around. You don't see many NSXs around. I don't.
Very rarely.
I see more GTRs. They're pretty
car
rare
meets
too.
car shows. I will see like a whole row of GTRs.
Yeah.
Very rarely see like one NSX.
There you go. Right. So the used market. So when you saw the sales spiked to more than double in 2022, the last year of productions, because there aren't a lot of them in the used market.
Fear of missing out tax.
Yeah, absolutely. So could they share platform architectures, battery tech, basic? Like, they'd have different bodywork and different interiors, but could they share a manufacturing facility? Could they share a manufacturing facility? Because in my story, I speculated that the PMC, the Performance Manufacturing Center, where they built the last gen NSX, is in Ohio. So you're worried about tariffs. You're worried about the car coming in being whacked with a giant tariff when it comes in from Japan. You build them in the U.S. Nissan builds a lot of its cars in the U.S. as well, but Honda was building its supercar in Ohio to avoid. Now, by the time this car comes, there could be a different administration. Trump
could be new laws.
Yeah. So it's hard to predict how that might go. But I said that in my story, I thought that could be a factor. I mean, there's a shared manufacturing facility for the BRZ and the 86 in Japan. In Austria, we have the Supra and the BMW Z4, same plant, totally different cars. But my thought was this could be like what BMW and Toyota did, where, shared, no, those cars are gas only. There's no electrification for the Supra or the Z4.
Yes.
But BMW supplied,
as of right now,
BMW supplied the engines. They supplied the suspension knuckles.
Infotainment.
Like, they're literally to the millimeter the same size.
Pretty much.
Under the skin.
They supplied every mechanical and electronic component, except for pretty much the tune and a few suspension mods here and there.
Toyota told me, I was at the launch in 2019, they told me that, because I said, is this the same size? He says, to the millimeter, the suspension knuckles and the wheelbase is the same.
Yeah. The frame is exact.
But what we tune it a bit differently, to your point. our transmission is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the 8 HP, the ZF transmission, which BMW uses in some of their other cars.
Yeah.
And BMW supplies the two engines. There were two engines at the time. The four-cylinder has been killed.
Yeah.
It's only the
no one was buying
it.
They said buy the four-cylinder if you want to swap your engine. No one was doing that.
And they use their contract manufacturer, Magda Steyr, who has built other BMWs. They specialize in short run, so lower volume, in the plant in Austria, and so that worked for them. Now, we talked a few weeks ago about the Supra going away, and I wonder if these cars come back, would they see economies of scale? We have a plant in America that built our last generation. They know how to build supercars at the PMC.
Yeah.
So could they say to Nissan, for the U.S. and Canada, the North American market, which is very important for these cars, and maybe there could be a tariff regime in a few years still, maybe.
Who knows?
Then economies of scale would be better if we build these cars stateside and then export them to Europe and Asia and wherever else, right?
Yeah.
Because there's only going to be one plant. These cars are not going to be built in multiple plants. That's not how it works.
Yeah, or
one plant.
Partially built somewhere and then goes somewhere else, get completed.
And the PMC did a lot of hand building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the GTR.
The GTR engines were all hand built. Yeah,
Takumi, the special craftsman who would build the.
Yes.
And if you've driven one, I've driven one a few times.
They all have the nice
badge,
plaque.
Yeah, by the Takumi hand built engine and hand built transmission as well for the previous generation, the R35. So it's interesting to see how this moves forward, because our friend Pons here at Nissan was saying these talks are very much ongoing.
Yeah.
He was at pains to say, look, he says, I'm not confirming that this is going to happen. I'm saying, and I'm quoting him, he basically said it could happen. It's possible. This is a possible thing that could happen between these two companies, because he was saying, and I said this in my story, these cars are niche, they're low volume. If there's a way to take some of the cost out and make it more efficient,
more affordable. The whole reason the NSX failed was because it was priced way out of its league. If they can somehow cut down that cost of this next performance vehicle, the third gen NSX,
right,
and they can do that by connecting with Nissan or anything, and I think they got a better chance.
And they could go on their own way too. Like there could be different forms of electrification. Like, I think our audience should prepare for the fact that these cars will not be straight gas. That's not happening. They will be electrified in some form or fashion.
Yes.
That's just the world we live in.
No V8s.
Yep.
As expected.
The GTR, there could be on the Nissan side, you could see a twin turbo V6. You could.
They might say
a turbo, or it could be a turbo 4, like you mentioned.
Yep.
That produces a lot of torque and horsepower. But the electrification will boost the power output too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I drove the new M5 back in February, and that's got it's a plug-in hybrid now.
Yeah.
And it's over 700 horsepower, and over 200 of that horsepower is from an electric motor. So people think, electric motor, what? They think that they're like lawnmowers or something. No, these things produce a lot of power, right? So the gas engine may do 400, but you want to get to 600, you have an electric motor for that.
Easy,
So we're spitballing here. We don't know. Nissan, this executive was very forthcoming. Usually they don't provide this much detail. I should also tell our audience, the reason this happened is that this executive was at the New York Auto Show, which was about 2 weeks ago, and the Drive journalist was asking him, he was interviewing him and asking him these questions. So that's how come it's kind of in the news now, is because it just happened at the New York Auto Show earlier this month. So that kind of gives it the sort of timeliness of it. The other thing he said, I was looking for the quote here. He told the Drive, this is a quote from Pons, the Nissan executive. He says, quote, "We need collaboration. We're going to need partnerships to deliver vehicles. I think partnerships are going to be a key part of our future."
Yeah.
So why not sports cars? Why not? Maybe the partnership on SUVs and the normie cars, whatever. But the supercars could be a partnership too, right?
Listen, if this partnership happens, all I know is Honda is a better company.
Yeah.
Nissan sucks. The NSX sucks. And the GTR is an amazing car.
Yeah.
So, you have an amazing car and a really bad company, and a really good company and a really bad car.
Yeah.
And so, if they can somehow make this work and give, Nissan the ability to kind of have the freedom to develop or do whatever, because the whole reason the partnership broke up was because they had different ideas of what this partnership would look like.
Yes.
Nissan wanted more freedom.
Nissan wanted a partnership of equals, and Honda's like, no, we view you more as a subsidiary, and then Nissan said, I'm out.
Honda said you made one good car in the past 20 years.
Here,
yeah.
Right? They wanted a merger of equals, which Honda's like, well, we don't need to merge. You guys need to merge because you guys are in trouble. We're not.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that they have a partnership already on special projects or certain unnamed projects suggests to me that this could be. It sounds a little far fetched because normally with supercars they don't want to. We're siloed. We don't trade secrets. We don't want to share technology. Yeah. Right.
The Le Mans is coming up.
Can you imagine the Germans doing this?
Yeah.
Imagine like Audi and Porsche, or Audi and BMW building a car together.
That would be weird.
One Audi and one BMW. No.
Yeah. Because
they're very competitive.
I can't do that.
No. We want to share. We want to keep our proprietary knowledge.
If anything, I could see this ending horribly, and in the next 4 or 5 years, they break up and then they end up making their own iterations of whatever joint
that's
venture.
Also a good we talked about how the next gen Supra could be a fully Toyota project, right? Where they go it alone, they bring back their inline six, which I'm sure would excite Toyota stands like yourself.
Yeah
you know, no BMW.
Yeah.
And they could after the Supra goes away next year, who knows. You know,
yeah.
The one thing I will say before we wrap up here for our audience to what to look for going forward, like how the ball might get moved forward here. The Tokyo Mobility Show is every 2 years. That's where they showed the Hyperforce, the Nissan Hyperforce in 2023. This fall, October 2025, and this show is a huge show for the Japanese OEMs. It's their home market, so I'm not saying that Honda or Nissan will have any announcements at the show, but it's in a few months, 6 months away-ish, roughly. There could be some more news. Then all our Toyota speculation.
Yeah,
there's going to be some news coming out of that.
It's going to be a massive year.
Yeah.
That's going to be one show to watch.
I'm still hoping for an MR2, guys. I'm still hoping.
It's okay. We'll get you one, Lee.
It's going to be a GR Corolla, but
yeah.
We talked about this last week. But that's all we have for now. Shorter episode of Factory Fresh this week. But we're going to have more hot stuff coming.
More speculations.
More speculation corner here, because that's kind of what we do.
And
if there's actual news, don't get us wrong. I get press releases from all the OEMs. If they confirm this, we will be talking about this next week.
Yeah.
Kind of what happened with Toyota.
If we have actual news.
When they confirmed a bunch of our speculation the following week. We were right.
Yeah, literally. It wasn't even the following week. I think it was the next day.
4 or 5 days.
By the time you had gone home, they had confirmed.
Press releases. Three press releases.
Listen.
Bang, bang, bang. So if Honda or Nissan decides to confirm this news between now and the next episode of Factory Fresh, we will be talking about this next week.
You'll hear about it.
You'll hear about it. But thanks so much, guys. Let us know what you think. How would you feel about a GTR that has Honda DNA, or vice versa? Would you like an NSX that's a little
don't
Nissan?
make me sick. Oh no.
Or we'd love to hear from you and on all topics automotive. What do you want us to talk about? Give us some ideas. Send us some comments. Reach out to us on our social feeds and let us know what you think of this collaboration and other collaborations you might be in favor of.
Yeah. Who would you want to see collab?
Yes.
Mention in the comments.
Let us know. And we will see you next week for another episode of Factory Fresh.
Factory Fresh. See you guys later.